Uganda Electricity Transmission Company profitability in the financial year 2021-22. And then check out the breathtaking Bugala Island in our Sounds of Business tonight. Without further ado, let's get into business. The Uganda National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, UNDP, and partners recently organized a private sector dialogue to explore and leverage the opportunities presented by the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. The event was held under the theme Accelerating Uganda's Preparedness and Participation in the African Continental Free Trade Area. Let's have a look. According to recent statistics, Africa's intra-continental trade currently accounts for only about 18% of the regional total trade, lagging significantly behind other continents. In comparison, Asia and Europe boast intra-regional trade figures of approximately 59% and 69% respectively. With the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which creates a single market for goods and services across 54 African countries, there is tremendous opportunity for African nations to boost their economic growth by increasing the trade within the continent.
And first of all, we are living in a time of uncertainty. And the last year, 2021-2022, UNDP authored a report, a human development report, which talked about the era of uncertainty. And we see uncertainties as a result of COVID. We see uncertainties as a result of war. We see uncertainties as a result of climate crisis. And we have seen human development retrogress 2 years in a row in the last 30 years that we haven't seen before. So what does it mean for us?
During this private sector dialogue, various strategies were proposed to help Uganda maximize benefits from this trade agreement. And these strategies include enhancing productive capacities, improving infrastructure, digital connectivity, strengthening trade facilitation, promoting small and medium enterprises, among others. This will not only stimulate economic growth, but also create employment opportunities, reduce poverty, and improve the standard of living for its citizens.
When I said to people that in Uganda we're all SMEs, people say, no, you're not all SMEs. My view, we're all SMEs. Unless you're talking about the multinationals, where we don't belong. But if you're talking about the base of our economy, the base of the economies in the West African countries, the SMEs that actually support our economies.
Several factors have influenced the challenges faced by Africa in enhancing intra-regional trade. These include inadequate infrastructure, trade barriers, bureaucratic red tape, and the limited access to finance for businesses.
We've now been to almost all the countries around us. We've been to the DRC, we've been to South Sudan, we've been to South Africa, we've been to Burundi, we hosted the president of Tanzania. Significant strides have been made in accessing some of that data.
The greatest opportunity that we seem not to have already touched, and that is to basically be able to export the excess capacity of teachers that we have.
Copper comes from Zambia. It's exported unprocessed to Ukraine. Ukraine processes the copper and is exported back to Southern Africa. And that is why the partnership with Afreximbank is so critical, because the productive capacity has to be financed by somebody.
The private sector dialogue served as a platform for key stakeholders to collaborate. With a focused approach and concerted efforts, Uganda stands a chance to reap big the benefits of increased intra-African trade and drive sustainable economic development. Wadulo Mark Arnold for UBC News in Kampala. Parliament has passed the financial year 2023-24 budget, projected to cost 52.74 trillion shillings. The budget aims to fully strengthen Uganda's economy through commercial agriculture, among other interventions, as Daniel Mugoya reports.
It is a sigh of relief as Parliament passes the budget estimates for financial year 2023-2024.
We prepared this budget in a high constrained environment, and only priorities that fit within the available resources will be financed as appropriated by Parliament.
The projected budget has increased to 52.74 trillion in the financial year 2023-2024, compared to the current financial year of 48.13 trillion shillings. Government expects a growth in GDP of up to 206.54 billion in respect to the GDP per capita of up to $1,282, linked to the current $1,093.
If we want to collect more, we must demonstrate to the taxpayers that as they pay more taxes, we have a return towards them in form of services.
Thank you.
33 billion additional is a starting point, but it's meager. You have the non-aligned movement where you're going to host over 90 leaders.
The Budget Committee of Parliament reports that in the current financial year 2022-2023, despite Uganda increasing its export base in the East African community states, there is more deficit as the country is losing a lot of foreign exchange as a result of too many imports from the rest of the world.
Major deficits were registered in VAT on imported salt, imported iron, steel, imported vehicle and spare parts, petroleum duty on diesel, excise duty on undenatured ethylene alcohol.
Points to note is that the unrestricted resource envelope decreased despite increment in the budget after the available funds capture a figure of 25.16 trillion in the next financial year 2023-2024. This has been attributed to, among others, increase in interest payments, Bank of Uganda reimbursements, and Bank of Uganda recapitalization, which stands at 217.1 billion. Nevertheless, the economy is expected to grow at an average rate of 6% in the financial year 2023-2024, up from 5% in the current financial year.
On account of increased oil and gas activities, production from implementation of parish development model, regional trade, and the positive impact of the continued recovery in regional and global economies. I wish to reassure this august House that the economy is on a progressive trajectory to achieve an average of at least 6% in the period of 22-23 to 24-25.
Colleagues, I would like to wash the doubts. The parish development model is a baby. It has just started this financial year. It has to go through a learning curve, but the expected outcomes are very positive.
Peace and security under the Security and Governance Program has topped the priority in the program-built budget, followed by road maintenance of both tarmac and Baram and electricity construction, among others.
There is also funding which is being given for encouraging industrialization processing. It's there. It may not be adequate, but it's there. There is provision for medical services. We saw it, but of course we are arguing that they should increase the amount of money.
The Butambala County MP Mwanga Chivumbi presented the committee's minority report citing wasteful resources in a disguise of classified expenditure. Although Chivumbi's report caught the attention of the House, few deliberations succeeded on its purpose.
Even if government was to facilitate the establishment of a pharmaceutical facility, the US $1 billion is a high scale for such a facility. Right honorable colleagues, we've noted with concern that both in the first school gender, second school gender, and the budget allocation, still there is no money for the medical interns.
As a ministry, we have already prepared and we are ready to deploy the 1,091 in our 51 sites of deployment.
The minority also decries government continuous funding for the MDAs, which have not complied with the mandatory submission of respective budgets to Parliament. Parliament later, after passing the budget, processed the Appropriation Bill 2023 of an estimate of about 31.263 trillion. Daniel Mugoya, Gloria Gwitabinji, UBC News.
The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives catalogued its successes, progress and challenges at the Manifesto Week. David Bahati, the State Minister, says that his ministry is fully implementing the policy of import substitution and export promotion through increased value addition.
David Bahati, the State Minister for Trade and Industry, in his presentation, highlighted some of the key areas of success, the challenges and expectations in the second year of the 2021-2026 NRM Manifesto implementation period.
We are going to process our cocoa. When you go to the shops, the supermarkets, you buy chocolates produced in France, but they import beans of cocoa and process them in France and export chocolate. So we want to reverse that order. Instead, we want to set up factories here, process and produce chocolates and sell them in the foreign market and be able to earn much more money than just selling the raw materials.
Although the NRM boasts of creating an enabling environment that has led to the growth of factories from 81 in 1986 to over 8,640 in 2023, there are concerns raised by the Manifesto implementation team that if urgently fixed can transform the economy further. These include the high cost of capital and low support for value addition. The State Minister concurred with the concern and promised to tackle the issues through collaboration with other government agencies.
So government is trying to help our business community by setting up Uganda Development, by capitalizing Uganda Development Bank. A few years ago, I think 2 years ago, we capitalized UDB by putting in 483 billion so that our business community can access this money at a cheaper price of not more than 12%. Compared to 24% of commercial banks, we think the 12% can provide some relief.
Asked on what his ministry is doing in the face of constant disruption of exports to the region due to claims of substandard products, Bahati had this to say.
We are not about to default on any commitments we have made at the East African community. Even if other countries default on our commitments, we cannot react by also defaulting. Instead, we have mechanisms like the Council of Ministers, Heads of State Summit to address these issues. So if there is a problem with Kenya, a trade problem with Kenya, a trade problem with DRC and other countries, our approaches don't react if they default on any of the protocols.
Currently, Uganda's import bill is at $7 billion, whereas the export bill is at $5 billion. This huge gap can be fixed mainly by focusing on import substitution and export promotion.
Oil marketing companies are advised to regularly cross-check with the standards body to curb the adulteration of petrol and diesel. This should be done before offloading at various gas stations and fuel reserves.
Uganda marks all the fuels that come into the country for purposes of trying to curb vices of adulteration, smuggling and fuel dumping. So far, compliance rate is at 99.7%, up from non-compliance rate of about 30% 5 years ago.
Our rating is really high. We are among the world best practices, and we have had a number of countries actually coming to benchmark or learn lessons, how do we, and really to compare notes in the recent past. That is the way we move.
According to the relevant authorities, the 0.03% of non-compliance is linked to undisciplined drivers who tamper with the product, mainly petroleum on transit. The vice is rampant in the eastern region of the country.
We have been able to find that most of those non-compliance arise out of transportation from one point to another.
Maybe are these the drivers or?
Yeah, the drivers mainly, the drivers and the turnboy. They branch somewhere, they take off the good product, they add in a bad product. In my presentation, I mentioned Eastern region. Along Naluwerere, Bugiri, Busitema, that's where that vice is more typical. especially when those trucks have just come in through that eastern route.
It's on this backdrop that the oil marketing companies are advised to cross-check their products before offloading.
Mainly petrol, which is costing high. Because if somebody is able to sell the petrol, when he has added in a lot of kerosene, he's selling that petrol, that kerosene at the price of kerosene. It's mainly petrol. Although diesel also now, they do the tamper with the quality of the product.
Adulterated fuel leads to loss in performance and efficiency and often causes vehicle breakages as a result of premature engine failure.
Uganda Electricity Transmission Company registered a drop in profitability by about 75 billion shillings in the financial year 2021-2022 compared to the previous year. The drop in profitability is attributed to the adverse effects of foreign currency losses to the entity.
Uganda Electricity Transmission Company registered improvement in business performance for the financial year ended 30th June 2022. According to the audited financial report, the government entity posted a profit of 37.7 billion shillings.
At least we will not be ashamed to say we are shareholders in a company that makes profits. The other issue that needs working with local government regards access to the land where we want to construct our infrastructure as a company. That keeps on coming in almost every report. Proper payment or settlement of PAPs and all that.
The entity believes it could have performed better than 2021 financial year if it were not for adverse foreign exchange losses that wiped out a whopping Uganda shillings 116 billion by the close of the 2022 financial year. Profitability difference between 2022 and 2021 is about Uganda shillings 75 billion. With the shilling often depreciating against the dollar, which is the most widely used currency in international transactions, what strategy is the entity employing in order to enhance profitability and cushion itself from similar occurrences?
If the country, the shilling is supported by high productivity, the shilling will be stable and we will have no impact of foreign exchange losses. But specifically to UETCL as a company, we have other mitigation measures which you would say would be hedging, and specifically what we are going to try and do is to convert some of our borrowings, which are in foreign currency that can be impacted by these foreign exchanges, into UGX borrowing. This has been done by our peers, and we will try and negotiate on this with the Ministry of Finance.
Uganda Electricity Transmission Company Limited also recorded an increase in energy sales from 4,537 gigawatts per hour to 5,055 gigawatts per hour, and revenue increment by 4.3%. Its total assets increased by 10.1%, and completed power projects such as the Opuyo Moroto and Karuma Kawanda transmission lines, among others. Arenato Crispus, Dennis Sigowa for UBC.
And on the corporate scene, Kampala Capital City Authority and Absa Bank have signed a memorandum of understanding. Now, this MOU is geared at supporting KCCA in areas of environmental sustainability, skilling and behavioral change.
Partnerships are a great way to develop cities because cities across the globe thrive where there is participatory approach, argues Dorothy Kisaka, the Executive Director, Kampala Capital City Authority.
The private sector is a key stakeholder in city redevelopment plans, and as such today marks a pivotal landmark for the banking sector. And may I add that we are not stopping at ABSA. We'll be reaching out to many others so that Kampala City can thrive.
This was at the signing ceremony of a memorandum of understanding between KCCA and Absa Bank Uganda. The partnership, worth 490 million Uganda shillings, is targeting women, youth and resource conservation and will run for a period of 3 years.
As a bank,
we are cognizant of the large array of societal challenges facing us, including economic development, job creation, quality of education, and impact of climate change. Our commitment as a brand is to be a force for good, and sustainability journey that we have embarked on is quite critical and is driven by our philosophy to create a shared value in the communities in which we operate.
Ranked 13th among the world's fastest growing cities, Kampala contributes 80% of Uganda's industrial and commercial activities, delivering over 65% of national GDP, with a daytime population of about 4 million people.
KCCA has taken keen focus on the contemporary global and national agendas to boost Kampala's potential to be resilient amidst the impact of climate change. Sustainable resource utilization, environmental protection, quality of life, skills empowerment for youth and women, inclusiveness, promoting local economic development, and innovation through smart technologies. We have a phrase that we are using to champion the developments in Kampala City, and that is the Smart City Agenda.
Kampala's rapid rate of urbanization has taken a toll on tree cover, habitats, and wetlands biodiversity.
We should all care about tree density because trees are a very important aspect of the ecosystem of cities and make cities better places to live. Increasing tree density will support improving air quality, cooling the air, reducing noise and air pollution, as well as providing tranquil spaces to exercise, gather, and relax. Additionally, trees can help provide clean water by protecting water supplies from pollutants, prevent soil erosion, and filter sediment, keeping surface waters and aquifers clean, and reducing treatment costs to cities.
Charlotte Amuge for UBC News.
Uganda National Bureau of Standards has so far inaugurated 3 regional laboratories. The facilities handle all technical aspects of acquiring certification. Now, BRAU had a chat with the Executive Director, UNBS, on the prospects that this initiative opens up.
Congratulations.
One of the Bureau's commitment is to make sure that we promote voluntary compliance to quality standards, especially by the manufacturers and the enterprises that are trying to put commodities on the market. This is very important because government is currently promoting what we call import substitution. For goodness sake, really, we are importing majority of things we can manufacture and produce within Uganda. So there is a lot of money we are spending in terms of importing these products from other countries, yet we can actually save that money and keep it into the country for other better economic activities. So one of the challenges has been that, do our products compete? How do we convince the consumers of imports that Ugandan products are actually equivalent or more superior? So that is one of the objectives of decentralizing these laboratories. Over a longer time, most of these services have been based in Kampala, and you can imagine all parts of Uganda were coming to Kampala. So there was a bit of disincentive for people who are distant. Imagine coming from Arua, coming from Kisoro, coming from Kotido, up to Kampala. So I think, indeed, the low levels of compliance was partly responsible for accessibility of UNBS quality infrastructure, which was only based in Kampala. Absolutely. Our entrepreneurs and industrialists in these regions where we have decentralized the laboratories are very much appreciative of UNBS concern about reducing the cost of business. We have significantly reduced the cost of transport to Kampala. We have also increased the access of these services to this region. So the voluntary compliance is going to increase, but also our consumers, we can now be able to tell everybody that please look for a UNBS certified product within the region where you are. Look for a quality mark because it's the only sign of confidence and assurance that this product is safe and is of quality for consumption. The industrialists, They are the entrepreneurs and the business communities that are dealing in majorly agro-processing and value addition, because as you know, 80% of our commodities or products are really agro-industrial based. So we believe that we have opportunity for majority of the sectors to be able to benefit from this. From dairy, you know, Western Uganda is key in dairy, but they're also growing some cereals. There are also horticultural products, there is fish, poultry. So we believe that all these range of products will be our target to make sure that we improve the quality of these products and commodities for our local consumption, but especially to begin to become competitive for regional and international markets.
The law does not allow it, including our own constitution, it does not allow it, and they should enlighten them with the prevailing policies and regulations in places of work where they are working, to ensure that they are able to utilize the legal and regulatory framework available to report any vices of sexual harassment. But the other issue also, we sensitized them that they should be intentional in the way they present themselves, in the way they dress, in the time they move out, in the way they talk. They should not expose themselves and make themselves vulnerable. For example, the way you dress for your husband in the bedroom is not the way you dress when you are going to the boardroom.
Bugala Island on the vast and scenic Kalangala Island district is one of the most popular tourism destinations in Uganda. The white sands, blue waters, ship and boat rides, nature walks, vegetation, mid-range and high-end accommodation, among others, makes Bugala a perfect family getaway. We have a sneak peek of what is in store for you in our Sounds of Business.
As many clothes as possible at a time. Heating an iron from cold operating temperature uses more electricity than keeping it hot. Switch off the ironing box or flat iron when not in use. Avoid ironing during peak hours. Use instant water heaters for heating water instead of traditional water heaters. Seal all leakages on the water heating system. Insulate water lines from water heaters. And last but not least, when heating water on the stove, make sure the saucepan is covered.
As we close in into half of the year, it is time to reevaluate your goals and find out if you're still on track. Remember, innovation and delegation come in handy when there is need for efficiency. And thank you for being a part of this week's episode of the Weekly Business Roundup with me, your host, Wadulo, Mark Arnold. Catch us on the next, same time, same place. From the team, we must say good night.
BBC, inspiring Uganda.